Hello, this is Daniel from sound.headquarters.inc. In today's video, we are building square bass traps and also triangular bass traps. These are built-in permanent solutions, and I'm going to show you step-by-step how to build them. Now, your sizing may vary, but the same build process applies to whatever size you want to make these traps. And here's a little sneak peek, and I'm going to make a full-length video of this entire studio build start to finish. We did a lot of soundproofing construction and a whole bunch of stuff for his home studio, which I'll show you in the full length coming up in the next week or two. So here is the space where we need to build these bass traps. We had to make these ones small because of the location of that window and the window casing. We still wanted to keep the traps symmetrical and equal sizing. So the first thing we need to do is build the frames. So I'm using 2x2 lumber, and we are building squares first to make up the top and bottom of the trap, and then we're doing 4-foot tall lengths to make up the long sides of the trap. And I'm just assembling all of this with L brackets and wood screws. And there you can see the trap assembled. It's just the square on the top and bottom, and then our long pieces to make up that 4 feet. I like to do 4-foot sections because the Rockwell Comfort Board 80 comes in 4-foot sections, and just makes insulating these bass traps at the end easier, but you can make these to a different size if you need to. So to install these, I am just using my multi-tool to cut out the baseboard section there so that I have enough space to install these traps right up against the wall in the corner. And I'm just screwing everything in with construction screws. And then I just made another frame to fit that next spacing and just screwed that in as well. You can see we have both sides all assembled now. Now we are ready to build and assemble the frames for this bulkhead trap. Now this one is going to be a triangular trap. And since it's a permanent installation, we don't have to build the backside of it because the wall will act as the backside. So we just need to frame the front section, which is just a rectangle, right? So we just get our sizing, and then we have equal measurements to install it. Here is the trim, how the trim is going to meet the wall. So even though there's going to be a bit of a gap between the frame and the wall and the ceiling, once we upholster and trim this at the end, then the trim will meet up with the ceiling and the wall and make a nice clean finished look. So just marking out my equal sections there, screwing in these frames, and just cutting the last one to size. The first two were 4 feet, and the third one was a little bit shorter. Here's the insulation that we're using to insulate these traps. We're using Rockwell Safe and Sound for the interior of the traps. That's this one right here. And then we're using Rockwell Comfort Board 80 for the exterior of the traps, which it's a more rigid acoustic insulation. So you can see we're just cutting to size at that square shape and just stuffing the bass trap floor to ceiling. And now I'm putting in the Rockwell Comfort Board 80. This just cuts to size as well and can just press fit into the frame, into that 2x2 cavity of the wood frame right there. And that just gives the final traps a nice rigid exterior, and it won't be squishy if anything bumps into it or anyone touches the bass traps. So here's the fabric we're using. We're using the same upholstery as the panels. This is a black crushed velvet, and we are just stapling this in. And it only needs to get stapled on the whole outer perimeter. That interior corner there does not need any staples. And it doesn't need any trim either, which gives a nice look at the end. So now we're ready to insulate this corner trap. So we are just cutting the Rockwell Safe and Sound to a nice 45-degree corner, or a triangle rather, and putting that into the trap. Now this fits nicely in the frame, and then you can see we still left that space in the frame to fit the Rockwell Comfort Board 80, the more rigid acoustic insulation, which is right here. You can see I'm just cutting that with my measuring tape and level as a straight edge. And these can just press fit right into the frames. Had to just get a little bit of the excess insulation out of there. And yeah, they just press right in, and now it's ready for upholstery. You can see I tacked on just the corners of the fabric just to make it easier for me to pull over, and the client gave me a hand as well, and just getting that all stapled in with the pneumatic stapler. You can use a handheld stapler if you like. Just standard T50 staples what I use. But I have invested in the pneumatic stapler. It saves a lot of time on these builds. So here is the trim. I'm using a 3.5-inch MDF trim, and I'm setting up the table saw on a 45-degree angle. This is what's going to give that nice finished edge where it meets the ceiling and the bulkhead. So I need to cut my long lengths with this 45-degree bevel, and then the short sides, I'll use my miter saw, but I'll still cut that same 45-degree bevel. You can see I have it set up on the 45 right there. And here you can see what I mean. It's going to meet up with that wall and that ceiling really nice. It's going to give a nice finished trim look. And just tacking it in with the 18-gauge brad nailer. the vertical pieces first and then the horizontals. And I'm staggering, since this is a long trap, I'm staggering the joints so that the joints don't both, like for the top and bottom trim, don't appear at the same space on the trap, just so your eye doesn't get drawn to it. And wood filling all of the joints and nail holes, and then we'll just go in and sand these down, and then it will be ready for paint. There's a quick look at the wood filler. And now I'm trimming up the tops and bottoms of these square traps. So I just had to cut a longer piece, and then I just penciled in where it met the corner to get my miter cut, and did the same on both sides. And that was just an easy way to get this miter joint to fit nicely on the top and bottom. If there is any variance, it's just easy to just mark where the miter needs to be rather than try to make it measure it out from beforehand. And then we just cut our verticals to size and tack them in on the left and right side of the frame. And that's it. We just wood fill again and sand, and then these are ready for paint as well. Now, rather than painting these casings white, this client opted to paint them the wall color, which ended up being a cool look. It really blended the traps in with the walls, and just the bottom of the square base traps we kept white to match the baseboards. So just rolling that paint on. And once this paint is dry, then that's the last step of building these traps. So there you can see it just masked off the fabric to paint that little inner section of the wood, and just rolling the paint onto that upper trap as well. Here you can see it all dried, and it matches the wall color nicely. There's the upper trap as well, just blends in nice. It's a nice final look. And that is it for the build of these base traps. We're gonna have a little sneak peek when the client got his gear in here in the last couple panels. And I'm gonna make a full-length video of the entire build of this studio. This was a really cool home studio build. We did full soundproofing, sauna pan, insulation, everything. We did the wood cladding, installed all these panels. We did a whole bunch of cool stuff for this client. Really fun build. Client was super happy with it, so were we. Stay tuned for more studio building content. Please subscribe for more. This has been Daniel from Sound Headquarters. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please check out my website if you have the chance, www.soundheadquarters.com, Instagram, sound.headquarters.inc. Peace out.